Hi everyone, today we're going to be going over percents and the percent equation, how to find the percentage of a number without a calculator. Please make sure to have your math notebook out so that you can take notes and use them when you're working on your class. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. A little bit of review about percentages is that a percent is out of 100. The word percent means per 100. Cent kind of means 100. And so when you are finding a percentage, you're taking that number out of 100 or you are dividing it by 100. A decimal version of a percent is in hundredths. So this is 20 hundredths. That's the same thing as 20%. Like I said, you can divide it by 100, take it out of 100. If you do 20 divided by 100, you'll get the decimal 0.20. If you want to quickly convert a percent to a decimal, you can divide by 100 or simply move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So for example, if you have 33%, you would take the decimal point and move it 2 places to the left, and it would be 0.33. If you want to find the percentage of a number, you will first change the percent to a decimal. Remember that we do not work with percentages when doing math unless we change them to a decimal. We always change them to a decimal first. And then you will multiply the decimal that you got by the number you were given. It would be very helpful at this point to remember and to memorize this fact that the word of in math typically means to multiply. So if you see a problem that says find 50% of 60, then you would do 0.50 times 60 because of means times. Here is an example of finding the percentage of a specific number. This question says, what is 80% of 62? So I've got 80%, but first I need to change it to a decimal before I do anything with it. So I'm going to move that decimal point 2 places to the left and get 0.80 or 0.8. And then I'm going to multiply 0.8 by 62 because 80% of 62 means to multiply the two numbers together. So I'm going to do 62 times 0.8, and it would be great to work this out on your own piece of paper and make sure that you're comfortable with the multiplication. So you would do 2 times 8 and get 16. And then you multiply that 6 by the 8 to get 48, and then add 1 to get 49. And then remember that there was one decimal place when we did the multiplication, so there's one decimal place in our answer. So the answer is 49.6. So the answer to the question, what is 80% of 62? The answer is 49.6. So if you were at a store and it said that something was $62, but it was 80% off, then you could do this problem and you would get 49.6. And that's how much money you could subtract from 62, and because you wouldn't have to pay the $49.60. Okay, I've got another example here, 20% of 54. So we've got 20%, and we're going to change that to a decimal to 0.2, and we're finding 20% of 54. So we need to multiply 0.2 times 54. And again, I'll take you through the multiplication. You would get 4 times 2 is 8, and then 5 times 2 is 10. And then we would end up with one decimal point at 10.8. So our answer is 10.8. So here are a couple practice problems. I would like you to pause the recording and try these problems out on your own piece of paper. And then once you're ready, unpause the recording and see if we got the same answer. Okay, so hopefully you've tried these out. I'm going to go ahead and put up the answers here. And if you have questions about how those are worked out, please feel free to send me a message and I can send you a typed out explanation, or you can call me and we can go over it. Okay, so now applying the percent equation. So you can kind of create an equation based on what the problem is that you're given. So some tips are to remember that of means multiply. You need to remember that the word of in math means to multiply. And you also need to remember that the word is in math means equals. So you can translate those words just like they were from another language into a math language. So here's an example. If you see something that says what, I want you to use an X to represent the unknown value. So if it says what percent of 4.96 is 31, then that what percent part translates to X. You don't really need to write a percent sign or anything. It's just that part is the question. It's the unknown value. And then we translate left to right, just like we're reading the question or reading the sentence. So of translates to multiply. 4.96 is already a number. And then is an equal sign. And 31 is just a number. So if you notice, I went left to right. And I translated one thing at a time. I went very slowly. And then I have an equation, which we know how to solve equations with x's or variables. We need to divide both sides by the 4.96 in order to get the x by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4.96, and my 4.96 will divide out to be 1, or it will cancel, and the x is alone now. And then you might do this part on a calculator, the 31 divided by 4.96, and you should get 6.25. Now that's not the final answer, because the question actually asked us for a percent. So we need to change our answer into a percentage at the end by moving the decimal point 2 places to the right, or multiplying by 100. So the real answer is x equals 625%. So 625%, which is obviously over 100%, of 4.91 turns out to be the number 31. So 31 is quite a bit bigger than 4.96, and it should be because it's 625% of 4.96. All right, here is another one. Again, we're going to translate from left to right. And remember that when we get to the what part, we're going to use an X. So that part, what percent, is going to be the X. So left to right, we're going to have a 21. Is translates to equals. What percent translates to X. Of translates to multiply. And then 52.5 is just 52.5. So the equation I have is 21 equals X times 52.5. So to get that x alone, I'm going to divide by 52.5. So on my calculator, I would type in 21 divided by 52.5, and I will get 0.4. Now again, look back at the original problem and check to see if they asked you for a percent, and they did. So I need to change 0.4 to a percentage, and I would get 40%. So 21 is 40% of 52.5. Now, you can have things kind of in a different order. This one does not ask for a percentage. It actually gives us the percentage. So it says 105% of 60 is what? So we're going to go with our method here. We're going to translate from left to right. But we need to remember that we don't use those percentages in our equations. We need to change that to a decimal. We always change it to a decimal before working with it. So 105%, sorry, I wanted to also mention that you need to use that x in place of the what, which we will get there. But 105% translates or changes into 1.05 as a decimal. So from the left side, I have 1.05 of translates to multiply. 60 is 60. Is turns into equals. And then that what, the last part, is the x. So this one is pretty easy. All we have to do is actually multiply 1.05 times 60. And we would get 63. So 63 is 105% of the number 60. That kind of makes sense because we wanted something a little bigger than 100% of 60. So we got 63. Okay, another example. It helps to do multiple examples so that you can see all these different styles of the question. So on this one, we're still going to go left to right. We're going to use our x for the unknown value, the what, and the 28%, we need to change that to a decimal before we do anything with it. So we're going to change it to 0.28. And then I'm going to put that in there on my new equation. And then we need to translate the word of to multiply. Is will translate to equals, and the 56 we can just write it as it is. So now I have the equation, 0.28 times x equals 56. And I need to divide both sides by the number that was originally multiplied to x, which is 0.28. So divide both sides by 0.28. Those will cancel out on the left side, and on the left now I only have x, and on the right, if you do the math and you could even try it on a calculator to see if you type it incorrectly, but you'll get 56 divided by 0.28 equals 200. Now on this one, we don't need to change our answer into a percentage. We were given the percent. They only asked for a number. They just said what. They didn't say what percent or anything like that. So the answer is purely 200. So here are a couple more practice problems. I'd like you to pause the recording and try them out on your own. And then when you're ready, unpause and check your answer and your work with what I have written. Okay, here are those two problems worked out. Please check your work and your answers. And here are two more problems to try. So please pause the recording and try them out on your own. Okay, go ahead and check your answers here. I have the equations up and I want you to think about the step that I took after writing the equation to get the answer. So double check your answers. And that will sum it up for all the different types of problems you'll see with percents and percent equations. So at this point, please open a message and type up your answers to these 5 questions. Please notice that numbers 2, 3, and 4 do not ask you for the final answer to the question. It asks you to write an equation. So I want to see the equation written out. And then number 5 says that you can just answer with the number, but if you want to earn some extra credit on this session, then you can include the equation that you wrote. So go ahead and answer those 5 questions, and if you need any help with anything, please feel free to send me a message or give me a call.